All right, let's talk about a word we all think we know, beauty. But today, we're going to look at it through a totally different lens. Not as just decoration, but as a deep structural principle that literally shapes our world.
And we're going to start with a pretty big question, one that's really at the heart of this whole thing. Why is it that when we talk about designing our systems, our technologies, our institutions, the idea of beauty is almost always left out of the room? To figure that out, we've got to understand how we even got here in the first place. Let's unpack the way we usually think about beauty and see why it might be leading us down the wrong path.
You know how it is. We tend to think of beauty as the finishing touch, right? The paint job, the nice font, the aesthetic layer we slap on after all the real work is done. It's just personal taste, totally subjective, and definitely not essential.
But here's the thing. When we separate beauty from the core design of our world, we feel it. It shows up as friction, as strain, as this deep feeling that things are being forced. This isn't just about stuff looking ugly. It's about our systems feeling brittle and unsustainable. Okay, so to really get a handle on this, we need to make a huge shift in how we see things. Instead of thinking of beauty as a simple yes or no judgment, let's try a new framework, looking at beauty as a gradient. This slide really lays it all out. On the left, you've got the common view. We treat beauty as a fixed evaluation. Is it good or is it bad? Thumbs up, thumbs down. But the structural view on the right sees it as a gradient, kind of like a gentle slope versus a steep, painful cliff. It's not about a fixed point, it's about the trajectory. It's not about judging something as beautiful or ugly, but sensing whether its structure is endurable or just really strained. And this idea comes straight from the source material. This quote here says, not a point, but an orbit. Not an evaluation, but a gradient. And that's the whole game right there. We're moving from a static judgment to a dynamic question. Are we on a sustainable path, or are we on one that's just going to create more and more friction? Probably the easiest way to think about this is as a physical, almost gut feeling, like your sense of balance. Beauty is our body's way of telling us that a system, whether it's an app, an organization, or a government, has an internal harmony that lets it grow and adapt without just falling apart. So if beauty is this kind of signal, how does it actually work? Well, you can think of it as a kind of tuning device for order itself. And this gets right to the heart of what it does. Beauty creates the right conditions, the right space, where ethics, function, and meaning can all live together without crashing into each other. In a system that has beauty, these critical parts don't have to fight for resources. They actually work together. This comparison really shows you what happens when that harmony is there and when it's not. A system with beauty, on the left, has that gentle gradient. It evolves through continuous questions, always updating with very little friction. But a system without beauty, that's a steep, sharp gradient. It's forced to change through collisions and sudden force, and all that energy always comes back to us as heat or pain, burnout, inefficiency, and a loss of trust. So this brings us to the act of actually making things. If beauty is a structural condition, what does that mean for the role of design? Well, it forces us to completely redefine design. It is not about surface appearance. It's the underlying grammar, the deep structure that gives us a preview of a possible future. The real job of a designer, then, is to ask of anything new, does this structure have room to grow? Can this future actually breathe? And this isn't some abstract philosophical idea. It applies directly to the most critical, complex things we're building today. We have to ask this question about our AI models, our social platforms, our political institutions, and yeah, even the simple systems we use in our daily lives. So, what's the big takeaway here? If beauty is this foundational quality, what is its role when it comes to our ethics? The thing is, beauty acts as a minimal, almost invisible ethical infrastructure. It doesn't bark orders, it doesn't tell you what's right or wrong. Instead, its power is in what it quietly refuses. A beautiful structure, by its very nature, simply can't support violence or strain for very long. Its own form just rejects it. Which brings us to our final and maybe most important point. And just so you know, this isn't a neat summary. It's an open question for you to carry with you. So if beauty is our sensor for a system's ability to breathe, you have to ask yourself, which of our systems, social, political, economic, which ones feel like they're suffocating? Which ones have lost that ability to adapt and evolve gracefully? And what about our tools? Which of our technologies feel like they're built on that foundation of strain, forcing us down rigid paths instead of allowing for gentle, continuous questions? And finally,
Think about our words, the actual building blocks of our reality. Which ones still contain the sense of structural integrity, and which ones have just become hollowed out? The real question, the one for us to take away, is this: where, in our world, is there still room for a future to breathe?